Topuria posted, I'm dealing with some personal problems, so I'm not gonna fight the first quarter. So the winner of Gaethje versus Paddy will be the interim
stuff. Obviously, we knew that he was going through some personal issues, and there's rumors online, and I didn't want to partake in any of those. I had not heard any of this. I had not heard any of these allegations or rumors, innuendo, any of that. And so you can understand even more so why he would want to step away and not focus on fighting or defending his title.
Imagine a scenario so implausible, so steeped in high-stakes drama and unprecedented chaos, that even the most imaginative scriptwriters in Hollywood would hesitate to pitch it to a studio executive. We are currently witnessing a sequence of events in the Ultimate Fighting Championship that defies every convention of combat sports history.
Story is that this made headlines for something that we were already told a couple of weeks ago, and there is no escalation from that, meaning Ilia Topuria is not vanquishing or having stripped from him.
For the very first time in the 4-decade existence of the promotion, we're staring down the barrel of a reality where an unbeaten, 2-division world champion might lose his crown without ever having his back touch the canvas in defeat, without ever succumbing to a submission, and without ever hearing a judge read a scorecard against him. This is the unraveling of a legacy in real time, a collision of supreme athletic achievement and devastating personal turmoil that has left the mixed martial arts community in a state of absolute shock. The catalyst for this upheaval was a somber announcement from Dana White, confirming that the lightweight strap is effectively up for grabs on January 24, 2026, when Justin Gaethje squares off against Paddy Pimblett. But the headline isn't just the fight. It is the ghost haunting the arena, the absence of the man who conquered the world only to walk away at the peak of his powers. The man in question is Ilia Topuria, a fighter who, until very recently, seemed less like a human being and more like a force of nature designed in a laboratory to dismantle the greatest fighters on Earth. To understand the gravity of his departure, you have to understand the sheer magnitude of what he built and what he is now leaving behind. The truth behind this situation is a labyrinth of legal accusations, heartbroken confessions, and a career teetering on the brink of total annihilation. Topuria recently broke his silence, revealing that he made the excruciating decision to temporarily step away from defending his title, a choice he emphasized was not made lightly but was necessitated by circumstances threatening his personal integrity, his family, and his reputation. We are watching one of the most shocking, unexpected, and frankly heartbreaking situations the sport has ever seen unfold, transforming from quiet whispers on social media back in October 2025 into a full-blown disaster that threatens to erase the future of the most gifted, explosive, and promising fighter to ever grace the octagon. Topuria's narrative arc was supposed to be the stuff of legend, not a tragedy. Born on October 23, 1997, he entered the UFC in 2020 as a relatively unknown prospect, possessing a perfect record and a hunger that radiated through the television screen. What followed was a violent ascension that rewrote the hierarchy of the featherweight division. He didn't just beat opponents, he dismantled them. He tore through the division like a wrecking ball, collecting victories over established names like Ryan Hall, Jai Herbert, Bryce Mitchell, and Josh Emmett. But it was in February 2024 that he transcended the sport, delivering a star-making performance by absolutely starching Alexander Volkanovski, the greatest featherweight of his era, with a knockout to capture the championship. Most fighters would have been content to sit on that throne, but Topuria's ambition knew no bounds. He defended his crown against the legendary Max Holloway in October 2024, proving his dominance wasn't a fluke, before shocking the world again in February 2025 by willingly vacating the title he worked so hard to get. He gave up the featherweight belt not because he was forced to, but because he had bigger plans, chasing lightweight gold. The stars aligned in a way that seemed almost preordained when Islam Makhachev, who had been dominating the lightweight division, vacated his title in May 2025 to pursue welterweight glory. This opened the door for Topuria, and on June 28, 2025, at UFC 317, he kicked that door off its hinges. In a display of violence that lasted exactly 51 seconds, Topuria used his explosive striking to land a devastating right hook that dropped Charles Oliveira cold, following up with ground and pound that rendered the Brazilian unconscious before Herb Dean could even intervene. In less than a minute, Topuria had joined the exclusive club of two-division champions, boasting knockout wins over Volkanovski, Holloway, and Oliveira. Observers began comparing his run to Jon Jones, calling it potentially the greatest three-fight stretch in MMA history. By August 2025, he was the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, an unbeaten 17-0 double champion sitting on top of the mountain. And then, with terrifying speed, the mountain began to crumble. The first cracks appeared in early October 2025, not in the cage but in the digital realm. Fans, who often serve as the internet's detectives, noticed that Topuria and his wife, Georgina Bedell, had simultaneously wiped all photos of each other from their Instagram accounts. In the modern era, this is the digital equivalent of a smoke signal indicating fire. While memes circulated and people cracked jokes, a much darker reality was festering beneath the surface. By November, the rumors had solidified into reported facts when Spanish media outlets dropped the bombshell that Bedell had filed for divorce and was seeking 50% of Topuria's assets. The situation was messy, public, and deeply concerning, but it was Topuria's statement on December 15, 2025, that turned concern into alarm. The champion revealed he wasn't just dealing with a divorce, he was facing an alleged extortion plot targeting him and his family. In his own words, Topuria described being subjected to severe and unacceptable pressure, including threats to disseminate false allegations of domestic abuse, unless financial demands were met. He was categorical in his denial, stating that these allegations were entirely unfounded and that the truth was a matter of evidence, not opinion. He claimed to have preserved audio recordings, written communications, witness statements, and video material to prove his innocence, evidence that he said has been submitted to judicial authorities to pursue legal action for attempted extortion, falsification of evidence, misappropriation of funds, and multiple threats. He explained that his initial silence was an attempt to protect his children, the most important part of his life, but he eventually realized that silence in such circumstances does not protect the truth. It merely allows false narratives to take hold. This is heavy, dark territory for a sport that usually deals in punches and kicks. The reaction from the MMA community has been a fractured mirror of society itself. On one side, you have voices like Sean O'Malley, who showed genuine empathy in early December, arguing that if a fighter is dealing with divorce and relationship trauma, stepping back is the only logical move because the mind needs to be sharp to survive in the cage. On the other side, you have the vitriol of fighters like Bryce Mitchell, who took to Instagram on December 15th to launch a blistering attack on Topuria. Mitchell, never one to hold back his opinions, accused Topuria of domestic violence without mincing words, dismissing the extortion claims and framing the situation through a religious lens, telling Topuria to repent. This highlights the dangerous court of public opinion where guilt is often decided long before a judge sees a single piece of evidence. It is a chaotic environment where internet personalities and fighters alike throw accusations, muddying the waters and making it nearly impossible to discern the truth from the noise. Caught in the middle of this personal hurricane is the UFC, an organization that must keep the machinery of the lightweight division moving. To their credit, Topuria claims the UFC brass has been excellent, offering understanding and support without demanding detailed explanations. However, the business of fighting pauses for no one. The lightweight division is a shark tank, and holding up the belt indefinitely is a logistical nightmare. This reality led to the Thanksgiving announcement that shook the sport: Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett for the interim lightweight championship at UFC 324. While ostensibly an interim title fight, the writing is on the wall. Paddy Pimblett has publicly suggested that if Topuria is absent until the summer of 2026, the interim belt should be upgraded to the undisputed title. There are whispers from sources that Topuria might even be considering vacating the title entirely, mirroring the precedent set by champions like Conor McGregor, who were stripped due to inactivity. The stakes for UFC 324 have now skyrocketed. For Justin Gaethje, now 37 years old with a record of 26-5, this is the last stand. He has been open about the fact that he would be delusional to think this is the start of his career. This is the final chapter, the last opportunity to secure the undisputed gold that has eluded him despite a career filled with violence and Fight of the Year honors. He wants to leave the sport on his own terms as a king. Standing in his way is Paddy Pimblett, the brash star who sits at 23-3 and remains perfect in the UFC at 7-0. Pimblett radiates confidence, predicting a knockout and mentally claiming the belt already, believing that once he wins the interim title, the uncertainty surrounding Topuria will essentially make him the undisputed king by default.